Hey, tonight we're not going to a sun-drenched coast. We're going to England, to the soft gray quiet of 1963, a time before the world got so loud. Imagine London, not the bustling city of today, but a place of smoky pubs and wet cobblestones, where secrets were kept behind the tweed curtains of ordinary houses. Picture a man standing at a window, watching the rain blur the streetlights into long, soft strokes of gold. He's an antiques dealer. He knows the value of things that are old and quiet and forgotten. And somewhere in the rolling darkness of the English countryside, a train is moving. It's not a passenger train filled with sleeping commuters. It's a mail train, a long, dark spine of steel slicing through the night. It carries letters, packages, and on this particular night, a secret. It carries more cash than most people would see in 100 lifetimes. The man at the window, his name is Bruce Reynolds, and he is thinking about that train. He's thinking about its rhythm, its schedule, its perfect, predictable journey through the sleeping heart of the country. He's about to compose a crime so audacious, yet so strangely elegant in its design, that they would call it great. But its real genius wasn't in its noise, it was in its silence, in the incredible, maddening patience required to listen to the world's heartbeat, just waiting for it to skip. So settle in, let the world outside your window fade away, and let's drift back to that quiet, rainy night in England, and listen for the sound of a train that is about to stop for all the wrong reasons. The antique shop smells of beeswax and old paper. A grandfather clock in the corner ticks with a slow, heavy rhythm, each sound falling into the quiet room like a drop of water into a deep well. Bruce Reynolds stands by a table, his fingers tracing the dovetailed joints of an old writing desk. He appreciates craftsmanship, the patience it takes, the way 100 small, perfect pieces can join together to make something strong, something beautiful. He is 31 years old, but his eyes are older. They hold the calm of a man who has learned to wait. His life, on the surface, is one of respectable quiet. He buys and sells the ghosts of other people's lives, old furniture, silver tea sets, forgotten paintings. He has a wife, a son, a life that should be enough. But at night, when the shop is dark and the clock is the only thing speaking, a deep restlessness settles in him, an artist's boredom. He feels he is living in a world of crooked frames and blurry details. He knows the criminal world. He's brushed against it, dabbled in its small, messy enterprises, but he finds it lacking. It's clumsy, it's loud, it's impatient. It's full of men who use fists when they should be using a map. Bruce doesn't see himself as a thief. He sees himself as an architect. And for months he has been staring at the blueprints of an idea so grand, so precise, it feels less like a plan and more like a destiny. Behind him, the bell above the shop door jingles softly. It's Buster Edwards. Buster is a boxer, a club owner. He moves with the heavy grace of a man who knows how to handle himself, but his eyes are tired. He's tired of the small wins, the small losses. He leans against the bookshelf filled with leather-bound histories.
"Anything?" Buster asks, his voice a low rumble. Bruce turns from the desk. He doesn't smile. "The train runs like a clock," he says. "The same time, the same route, every night." Buster nods slowly. He's heard this talk before. For weeks, Bruce has been obsessed with the Glasgow to London Royal Mail train, the one they call the Up Special. "It's madness, Bruce," Buster says, but there's no conviction in his voice. He's just saying the words. The truth is, the madness is appealing. It's the most interesting thing that has happened to him in years. "No," Bruce replies, his voice quiet but firm. "Madness is doing the same thing every day, expecting a different life. This is mathematics." He walks to the back of the shop to a small office where maps are spread across a large table. Railway lines drawn in red ink. Timetables covered in notes. It looks like a general's campaign tent, a war planned in whispers. A group of men are waiting. They are not from the world of antiques. They are from the shadows of London, men with specific skills. One is a driver, another an expert on signals. They are all looking at Bruce. They are not here for his charm. They are here because they believe in his patience. This was the beginning of the crew, a collection of men drawn together not by greed alone, but by a shared desire to pull off something perfect, something that would be remembered not for its violence, but for its audacity, its art. One of the men, a tall, thin man named Gordon Goody, points at the map. The signal at Sears Crossing, you're sure it's the right spot? It's the only spot, he says. It's in a dead zone. No phones for miles. Just fields and darkness. The perfect stage. There's a silence in the room. Not of doubt, but of calculation. The sound of professionals weighing risk against reward. Bruce's stillness is the anchor. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. His confidence is a quiet, steady hum that fills the room. He makes them believe that the impossible is just a matter of timing. After the meeting, Bruce walks home through the London drizzle. The city feels different tonight. The familiar streets seem like a set, a backdrop for the real story happening inside his head. He passes a cinema, its marquee advertising a grand adventure film. He almost laughs. They pay to watch stories like the one he is about to live. He thinks he sees someone watching him from a parked car, a flicker of a cigarette in the dark. Or maybe it's just a reflection. It doesn't matter. He knows he's being watched. When you plan to steal the pulse of a nation, you become a gravity well. Everyone leans in your direction.
He climbs the stairs to his flat. His wife is asleep. His son is dreaming in his crib. The world is soft and safe here. He stands by the window, the unlit cigarette in his hand, a familiar ritual. The city spreads before him like a promise. The clock in the shop was ticking, counting down. But here, in the quiet of his home, time seems to stop. The phone on his side table buzzes once, a coded message. The farmhouse is ours. He deletes it. The place they chose was called Leatherslade Farm, a secluded, slightly run-down property in Buckinghamshire, not far from the railway line. It was their sanctuary, their rehearsal space, their hiding place. It was the quiet heart of their loud ambition. Imagine the farm at night, an old stone house, surrounded by fields of sleeping cows. The only light comes from a single window, heavily curtained. Inside, the men gather. They are a strange family, bound by a single audacious secret. They speak in low tones. They move carefully, as if the floorboards might betray them. They have a piece of railway track in the barn. They practice on it for hours, learning how to uncouple the carriages in the dark. Their hands, some calloused from work, others soft from a different kind of life, learn the cold, unforgiving language of steel. They also have a set of signal lights. They've acquired them, quietly, from a source who asked no questions. An old railway man, a ghost from another era, has joined them. A man we'll call the Signal Man. He is in his late 60s, with hands that remember the age of steam. He shows them how to change the lights, how to turn a green light to amber, and an amber light to red. It's simple, he whispers, his voice dry like old leaves. You just have to fool the electricity. Make it think there's a train stopped on the line ahead. He shows them how to cover the green light with a glove and how to wire a battery to the red bulb. It's a simple trick, a piece of country magic. The plan is becoming real, piece by piece. But with reality comes friction. One night a problem arises. Gordon Goody, the details man, has news. The high-value carriage, he says, his voice tight. They sometimes place it further back in the train, not always the second carriage behind the engine. A silence falls over the room. This changes things. They would have to stop the train, then get the driver to move it further down the track to the bridge where they planned to unload it. This requires a new skill. They need someone who can drive a train. Bruce looks around the room. No one speaks. None of them can drive a train. The plan, so perfect on paper, has hit a wall. For a moment, the whole enterprise hangs in the balance. Some of the men look nervous. This is where most plans fail, in the face of the unexpected. But Bruce is calm. He lights a cigarette, the flare of the match briefly illuminating his thoughtful face. "Then we find one," he says. "Or we find someone who used to be one."
He makes a call the next day, a quiet conversation with a contact in a world he tries to keep at a distance. 2 days later, a man arrives at the farm. He is older, retired. He has the weary look of someone who has seen too much. He was once a train driver, before a small mistake cost him his job. He agrees to help, not for the money, but for a chance to be in the driver's cabin one last time. He becomes another ghost in their machine. Meanwhile, Bruce returns to his ritual, the London antique shop, the slow ticking of the clock. He needs to cultivate this quiet, to keep the two worlds separate. One afternoon, a policeman comes into the shop, a regular customer. He's looking for a silver locket for his wife's birthday. Bruce shows him a few pieces, his hands steady, his voice calm. They chat about the weather, about a recent robbery in another part of London. "Amateurs," the policeman says, shaking his head. "Always in a hurry, always leave something behind." Bruce nods. "Patience is a virtue," he says, and the policeman agrees. As the officer leaves, Bruce watches him walk down the street. He is not afraid. He feels a strange sense of connection. They are both in the business of details. They are both playing a long, quiet game. That night, back at the farm, the final pieces fall into place. They have their driver, they have their signal trick, they have their timeline. They will use 2 old army trucks to carry the money. They have boiler suits and masks. They sit around the table, the air thick with the smell of stale cigarette smoke and nervous anticipation. They do a final review. The date is set, August 8th, just a few days away. Bruce looks at the faces of the men he has assembled. They are a mix of hope and fear. He knows that in a few days, their lives will be changed forever. They will either be rich men or they will be prisoners. There is no middle ground. "No violence," he says, his voice barely a whisper, but everyone hears it. That is the most important rule. We are not thugs, we are professionals. We are taking something that is insured. No one gets hurt. They all nod. This is the code. The one thing that makes this feel different, elegant, a gentleman's crime. Outside, the wind blows across the dark fields. A train whistle sounds in the distance, a lonely cry in the night. It sounds like a warning, or maybe it sounds like an invitation. The night of August 7th is heavy and moonless. The air in the Buckinghamshire countryside is thick with the smell of damp earth and cut grass. The world seems to be holding its breath. At Leatherslade Farm, there is a quiet, focused energy. No one is talking much. The time for words is over. The men pull on their boiler suits. They are dark green, the color of the deep country. They check their equipment one last time. Crowbars, ropes, gloves, and the simple battery and wires for the signal. Imagine them moving in the dim light of the barn, their faces partially hidden by shadow. They are no longer individuals with names and histories. They are a team, a single organism with one purpose. Bruce Reynolds stands apart for a moment, watching them. He feels a profound sense of calm. This is the moment the artist steps back from the canvas, just before the final stroke. Everything is in place. The long months of planning, the quiet meetings, the secret rehearsals, it has all led to this single, silent point in time.
They leave the farm in small groups. The 2 army trucks and the Land Rover rumble to life, their engines a low growl in the stillness. They drive without headlights, following the winding country lanes they have memorized. The vehicles move slowly, carefully, like animals stalking through the undergrowth. They arrive at Bridego Bridge. The railway line cuts through the landscape here, a dark ribbon of steel running through endless fields. The bridge itself is a simple brick-built structure. It is their chosen spot, isolated, defensible. A few men stay with the trucks, hidden under the bridge. The others walk along the tracks to the signal at Sears Crossing. It is about a half a mile away. Imagine their soft footsteps on the gravel beside the tracks. The only sound is the wind rustling through the leaves of the trees that line the embankment. The signalman, the old railway man, gets to work. His movements are slow and deliberate. He has done this 1,000 times in his mind. He climbs the signal post. He carefully places a leather glove over the green light, plunging it into darkness. Then, he takes the wires from his pocket. He connects one end to a large battery and the other to the terminals of the red light. He checks the connection. The red light glows, a single malevolent eye staring down the track into the darkness. It is a perfect lie, told in light. The men take their positions and wait. Waiting is the hardest part. The minutes stretch out feeling like hours. They lie flat in the high grass on the embankment, becoming part of the landscape. They listen. For what? For the sound that will change their lives. And then they hear it. A low hum at first, a vibration felt through the ground more than heard with the ears. It grows steadily, becoming a rhythmic clatter. The up special, the mail train. It is on time. Inside the locomotive, the driver, a 57-year-old man named Jack Mills, is at the controls. His co-driver, David Whitby, sits beside him. For them, it is just another night run, a routine trip from Glasgow to London. They drink tea from flasks and talk quietly. The train is their world, a warm, bright capsule moving through the cold, dark night. As they approach Sears Crossing, Mills sees the signal, amber. He slows the train, as procedure dictates. Then he sees the next signal, red. He applies the brakes. The train, with its 12 carriages, lets out a long, metallic sigh. The hiss of the air brakes is loud in the sudden silence. The wheels groan as they come to a complete stop. Mills is not alarmed. He is annoyed. A delay. He expects to see a maintenance crew on the line. He tells Whitby to get out and use the trackside telephone to call the signalman at the next box to find out what the problem is. As Whitby climbs down from the cabin, he is met by a figure, a man in a boiler suit and a ski mask. Before he can react, he is grabbed, and a quiet voice tells him not to make a sound. At the same time, other figures swarm the engine. They climb into the cabin. There is a brief, clumsy struggle. Jack Mills is hit on the head with a crowbar. It is not a vicious blow, but it is enough to daze him, to leave him bleeding. This is the first and only serious act of violence. The one rule Bruce Reynolds had made has been broken, not out of malice, but out of panic in the dark. The men take control of the engine. They tell the dazed Jack Mills that they need him to move the train forward to the bridge. They have their own driver, the retired one, but he is unfamiliar with this specific class of locomotive. He cannot get it to work properly. It is an unexpected complication. So now, the victim of their crime is forced to become a part of it. Mills, shaken and injured, agrees. He is a professional. He knows his engine. He releases the brakes and eases the train forward. It moves slowly, crawling the half-mile to Bridego Bridge, where the rest of the gang is waiting. Under the bridge, the scene is one of quiet, organized activity. The men swarm the second carriage, the high-value packages coach. They use crowbars to force the doors. The postal workers inside are taken completely by surprise. They are sorting mail, lost in the rhythm of their work. Masked men enter the carriage. They tell the 5 postal workers to lie face down on the floor at one end of the coach. The workers are terrified, but they do as they are told. There is no resistance. Then the main task begins, unloading the money. There are 128 mailbags. They are heavy canvas sacks sealed with wax. The men form a human chain. It is a slow, difficult process. A bag is passed from inside the carriage to a man on the steps, to another on the ground who passes it down the steep embankment to the men waiting by the trucks below. Imagine the scene, the dim light from handheld torches, the hushed grunts of exertion as the heavy bags are lifted and passed. The only sounds are the scuffing of boots, the rustle of the canvas bags, and the quiet commands of the robbers. It is not a frantic rush. It is a slow, methodical, almost dreamlike process. For 30 minutes they work in near silence, a line of ghosts passing treasure down from a ghost train. They empty the carriage. The total amount is staggering, over £2.5 million, an almost mythical sum of money in 1963. They load the last bag into one of the trucks. Their work is done. They give one final instruction to the postal workers and the train crew. Stay put for half an hour. Then they vanish. The roar of the truck's engines shatters the silence. They pull away from the bridge and disappear into the labyrinth of dark country lanes. Left behind is the train, standing silent and wounded on the tracks. The postal workers, shaken, slowly get to their feet. The night, which had been so rudely interrupted, slowly returns to its quiet, indifferent state. The Great Robbery is over. It took less than an hour. But the story was just beginning. The 2 army trucks rumble through the darkness, their headlights off. The men inside are silent, their adrenaline slowly giving way to a mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. They have done it. The impossible idea whispered in the back of an antique shop has become real. In the back of the trucks, under canvas sheets, are 128 mailbags. The sheer weight of their success is immense. Their destination is Leatherslade Farm, just a few miles away. It is their safe harbor, the place where they can finally breathe. When they arrive, the old farmhouse is a beacon of light in the sea of darkness. They pull the trucks into the barn and shut the heavy doors. Inside the farmhouse kitchen, the atmosphere is electric. They unload one of the bags, cutting it open and pouring the contents onto the large wooden table. Piles and piles of old, used banknotes. The room is filled with the musty smell of old paper and money. They laugh, they cheer, but quietly. They are still ghosts, afraid of making too much noise. They listen to a police band radio, waiting for the first news of the robbery to break. But there is nothing, only silence. It seems they have pulled it off perfectly. They feel invincible, invisible. They decide to celebrate. They have brought beer and food. To pass the time, some of them start a game of Monopoly, the popular board game. But instead of the colorful play money, they use the real banknotes from the robbery. It is a moment of pure, giddy arrogance. A photograph of this game would later become famous. It is a picture of men who believe they have beaten the system. Their plan is to lay low at the farm for a few days, until the initial heat of the police investigation has died down. Then they will split the money and go their separate ways, disappearing back into their ordinary lives, but as rich men. But their plan for the aftermath is not as meticulous as their plan for the robbery. Small mistakes are being made. In their excitement, they are not as careful as they should be. They leave fingerprints on the Monopoly board, on a bottle of ketchup, on the beer bottles. They do not wear their gloves inside the house. These are tiny, insignificant details, but they will become the threads that unravel everything. Meanwhile, back at Bridego Bridge, the alarm has finally been raised. The postal workers and train crew, after waiting the prescribed half an hour, have managed to get word to the authorities. The news spreads quickly. A mail train has been robbed. The amount of money is unprecedented. Scotland Yard is called in. A special task force is assembled, led by a determined detective named Jack Slipper. He is a classic policeman, quiet, methodical, and incredibly patient. He has a reputation for never giving up. He becomes Slipper of the Yard, the fox tasked with hunting these clever thieves. The investigation begins at the crime scene. Police officers swarm the area, searching for clues. They find the abandoned equipment, the battery used for the signal. But the robbers have been careful. There is very little to go on. Slipper knows the gang must have had a local hideout. Robbing a train and moving that much cash requires a nearby base. He orders a systematic search of all farms, abandoned houses, and remote buildings in a 30-mile radius. It is a huge task. Hundreds of police officers begin knocking on doors, searching barns, and flying over the countryside in helicopters. Back at Leatherslade Farm, the robbers are becoming nervous. The radio is now alive with news of the robbery. The police search is intensifying. They can hear the sound of helicopters in the distance. Their safe harbor is starting to feel like a trap. They had paid a man to clean the farm after they left, to burn anything that could be used as evidence. But now they feel they cannot wait. The police are closing in too fast. On the 5th day, Bruce Reynolds makes a decision. They have to leave. Now. They pack the money into their cars. They do a hurried, clumsy job of cleaning up the farmhouse, wiping down surfaces, but they are rushed and panicked. They miss things, the ketchup bottle, the Monopoly set. They get in their cars and drive away, splitting up, melting back into the country. Just a few hours later, a local policeman, following up on a tip from a farm worker who was suspicious of the new occupants, arrives at Leatherslade Farm. He finds the place deserted, but he also finds the evidence the gang left behind. He finds the mailbags, he finds the food, and most importantly, he finds the fingerprints. When Slipper of the Yard arrives, he knows he has found the robber's nest. The farm is a treasure trove of forensic evidence. The fingerprints are a direct link to the men themselves. The police now have names. They have faces. The hunt is no longer for ghosts. It is for real men. The unraveling begins. One by one, the members of the gang are tracked down and arrested. The arrests are not dramatic. They happen in quiet suburban houses, in London flats in the early hours of the morning. Buster Edwards is found in a small apartment. Gordon Goody is picked up trying to leave the country. The trials are a media sensation. The public is fascinated by the story of the Great Train Robbery. Some of the robbers are portrayed as daring folk heroes, ordinary men who took on the establishment and won, if only for a few days. But the courts do not see them as heroes. The sentences are severe. 30 years in prison for most of them. The judge wants to make an example of them. He calls their crime a sordid crime of violence and greed. But not everyone is caught. Bruce Reynolds, the architect, manages to evade the police for 5 years, living on the run with his family in Mexico and Canada, before finally being captured and brought back to England. And then there is Ronnie Biggs. He is not one of the main planners, just a small part of the crew, but he becomes the most famous. After being sentenced, he escapes from prison and flees to Brazil, where he lives as a fugitive for decades, taunting the British police. And what of the money? The vast majority of the £2.6 million is never recovered. It disappears into a network of accounts, into new lives, buried in gardens, or spent in 1,000 different ways. It becomes a legend in itself, a lost treasure. The aftermath of the Great Train Robbery is a long, slow story of consequences. The dream of a life of ease, bought with a single night of quiet, patient work, dissolves into the harsh reality of prison cells and life on the run. The perfect crime turned out to be perfectly imperfect. The small human details they overlooked in their moment of triumph were their undoing. The quiet crime of 1963 ended up echoing for the rest of their lives, a constant reminder of the night they stopped a train and changed their worlds forever. And so, the story of the Great Train Robbery comes to a gentle close. It was a story that started with a quiet idea in a quiet shop on a rainy London night. It was a plan built on patience and precision, a crime that was more like a complex piece of clockwork than a violent act. But even the most perfect clock can have a flaw, a tiny, unseen imbalance that eventually brings the whole mechanism to a stop. For the train robbers, their flaw was their own humanity, the moment of panic that led to violence, the moment of arrogance that led them to play a board game with stolen money, the simple human act of leaving a fingerprint on a bottle. The legend of the robbery grew over the years, becoming a part of British folklore. It was a story of audacity, of a time when ordinary men could dream of something extraordinary. But behind the legend were real lives, lives spent in prison, lives looking over their shoulders, lives forever defined by that one moonless night in Buckinghamshire. Bruce Reynolds, the mastermind, served his time and was released. He lived a quiet life afterwards, writing a book about his experiences. He never expressed regret for the crime itself, only for the mistakes that were made. For him, it was always a work of art that had been slightly, tragically spoiled. The stolen money, the ghost in the machine, was never fully accounted for. It remains a mystery, a whisper of lost fortunes. Perhaps it brought happiness to some, or perhaps it was a curse, a heavy secret that could never be shared. As we end our story, let the images fade. Let the picture of the dark train on the tracks, the quiet fields of the English countryside, and the smoky back rooms of London dissolve into the soft darkness around you now. There is no need to hold on to the details. Let them drift away, like smoke on the wind. Feel the stillness of your own room, the comfort of where you are. Your breathing is slow and steady. Your body is heavy and relaxed. The story is over. The night is quiet. Let go of the day. Let go of your thoughts. If they come, just watch them pass like clouds in the night sky. There are no trains to catch, no plans to make. There is only this moment of peace, this gentle slide into sleep. The quiet of the English countryside is now the quiet of your own mind. It is a deep and peaceful place. Allow yourself to rest there. Allow yourself to drift. Sleep is coming now, a soft and welcome friend. Good night. Sleep well.